I'm Patty Bennett, and I've worked at the field office for about 2.5 years now. Prior to working at the field office, I worked at the Financial Management Center. So I have, that was all HCV funding. So I can answer a lot of questions on the two-year tool if you have them. What we're going to do today is go over a slideshow. I'm going to share my screen here. And then I would like to also go over a two-year tool with you. I'm not seeing my slideshow. Let's see, there's my PowerPoint. Oh, show all windows. Here we go. Okay, so what we're going to do today is go over the two-year tool step by step. And the objective of the two-year tool is to analyze a housing authority's utilization situation. We run the tool, and whoever your portfolio manager is at the field office should probably be running the tool with you from time to time. I like to go at least quarterly with my housing authorities, depending if they're close on numbers, meaning if they may go over budget authority and are at risk of shortfall, or being referred to the shortfall team, or if they have a lot of leasing to do. Sometimes I'll do the tools monthly. So we're going to go over obtaining the tool, basic layout of the tool, how to operate throughout the year, variables that can affect the outcome, your reserves. We're going to talk about per unit cost, and then we're going to go over some scenarios on a tool. Okay. Housing authorities can download their own tools from the Office of Housing Choice Vouchers website. And I have that website here on the slide. You may have to change some settings before you download the tool. But the easiest way is just to contact your portfolio manager and ask them for a copy of the tool. Okay, so when we first open the tool, you get a screen that looks somewhat like this. These areas to the right and to the left of the center are not there anymore. It's just the center section. So what you want to do when you do open the tool, you put your PHA name in, and then you say select to your tool. Okay, on the upper left-hand part of the tool is going to be your funding information. This is ACC funding. It's got your initial BA, budget authority, and it might have some offsets on there too. You can see the offsets are right under your initial funding. We're going to go over this in more detail later. Next to that is funding and proration offset levels. On this tool, and this is a sample that we changed the dates on, so this isn't what it's going to look like right now, but what they have is 2021 and 2022 are estimated to be prorated at 100%. Year 2, which is 2021, they're estimating the excess reserve subject to offset at 25%. And we will go into that a little bit later also. To the right of that, you've got your success rate. This example shows a 65% success rate, 16% annual turnover rate, and we'll explain the difference between these two numbers. And then this is the time, this box shows the time it takes to, whoops, let's see. Shows the time it takes to lease. What percentage of your vouchers are leased in 30 days, and 30 to 60 days, and so forth. This housing authority in this example is about an average of 1.85 months from the time the voucher is issued till they successfully lease. Okay, then we've got the end of year summary, and this is the part, once I get all my data input, I go up to this part to figure out what's happening with the housing authority. This housing authority, as you can see here, they've got excess reserves subject to offset. Not a large amount, but some. Okay, next part, access additional tools. And I'll show you what that screen looks like later. This is beginning year RNP, or restricted net position. And then there's an admin fee analysis here. And at the very bottom of the tool is your actual HAP and your actual unit months leased. And then you've got vouchers on the street. Okay, to the right of that, you've got your per unit cost. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug now, and he's going to go over just the very basics of the tool.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah, so 3 main components to think about in operating the PHA throughout the year. So first, there's what you start the year with, which, as Patty mentioned, the restricted net position or reserves. That's how much money that the PHA has available that HUD is holding in excess. Secondly, there's how much you get paid throughout the year, so your housing assistance payments. And then third, how much you spend throughout the year. So how much of your HAP that you're spending throughout the year as reported in VMS. And a way that we like to think about it is in terms of like, just think of a checkbook. It kind of operates the same way. So you start the year with a balance in your checkbook. You're getting paid. Let's say you're getting paid every other week. That's coming in as your HAP, or every month. And then how much you spend. So you're paying your bills and so forth, groceries, utility bills. So kind of a little analogy is to think of it as a checkbook, and that makes it a little simpler. These next couple of slides go into a little of the detail on how the excess reserves are calculated in the tool. And we won't dive into, I'll spare everyone going into the details of all of these, but the details are there if you'd like to look them up. But essentially, the tool is going to be populated for the beginning of the year with what your excess reserves are. And on the next slide, if you take a look at the left side, in terms of what you start the year with, the left side column where that $12,000 is, the $83,000, that is the world as HUD is seeing it in terms of your excess reserves. And then just to the right of that, the 217,000, the 288,000, that would be how your PHA is seeing the world. And the numbers may not be identical. In most cases, they're probably not. Some of the differences have to do with the timing, or maybe how the VMS is reported versus your accounting system and whatnot. But the net is in that yellow box. The numbers should be fairly close. And what HUD is going to use is the lower of those two numbers. So you can see in this example, HUD is going to use $83,000 as the excess reserves to start the year with. And the reason we do that is just to err on the side of caution, so that you're not caught at the end of the year with less money than you thought you had. So we're erring a little bit conservatively and just using a little bit of caution. And if you have any questions on this, absolutely reach out to a financial analyst in the FMC, and they can help you out with it. So that's what you start the year with. And then what you get paid throughout the year. So if you take a look at the initial BA that first arrow is pointing to, that's your initial budget authority. Your total funds available, which will consist of your excess reserves and your HAP. And then just in the out years, years 2 and 3 there, those are estimates. Those are funding estimates. So that's what you get paid. And then how much you spend. As Patty mentioned at the bottom of the tool there, there's the spending portion. So these are loaded in from VMS. your actual unit months leased, and your actual housing assistance payments. So you're probably very familiar with the field office reaching out to you for updates. And what we try to do is make sure we've loaded in the VMS data first so that we're not asking you for any information that you've already provided in the system. If it's before the 22nd of the month when VMS updates, we may ask you for the current month or the next month, for example. But essentially, this is just taking a look at the amount of money that you're spending throughout the year in HAP. And then I think Patty is going to go into a little bit on the voucher side in that yellow column on the far right, in terms of the vouchers on the street that are issued. So back to Patty. Thanks.
Okay, so thanks, Doug. You've got the basics, how you start the year, what you get paid, and then what you spend. Okay, there's variables that can affect the outcomes. I know the tool can be confusing to some people, so to a lot of people actually. So if I take it, I like to break it down. I had a tool before we had the 2-year tool when I worked at the Financial Management Center, and I just used what they started with, what they got paid, and what was spent. Those 3 numbers would get me close. These variables will really fine tune the estimates in this. Okay, success rate is the first variable. So the success rate is the percent of issued vouchers that are successfully leased. For example, you send 10 vouchers on the street, 7 of them lease up, that's a 70% success rate. 70% also happens to be the default in the tool. When we start entering vouchers on the street, playing with scenarios, the more accurate your success rate is in the tool, the more accurate the projections are going to be. And we'll show you how you can put data in to figure exactly what your historical success rate has been. So if you want to go into if you want to get a more accurate success rate, this is something HUD can't do. You'll have to do this part. So you click on Access Additional Tools, and then this screen pops out. And so you're going to want to do success rate tracking, which is analyze the success rate and time to lease variables to determine the most appropriate numbers to use in the tool. Once you click on that button, you get this worksheet and it's added into the tool. So in this example, we've got 2017 and 2018, which right now you probably have 19 and 20 in there. You'll want to put each month how many vouchers were issued, how many failed to lease, and then in what months, the ones that did lease, what months did they lease? How many in February, March, April, May, and June? This will then track back into the tool and it'll populate your success rate. If it's 70%, that's what it'll be. It'll probably be something else. But it'll also tell you how many were leased in 30 days, how many leased in 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 120, and 120 to 150 days. I normally don't ask my housing authorities to fill this out unless the numbers are close. If your numbers are close, you think you're going to go into shortfall, all the fine tuning we can do helps a lot more to make these estimates accurate. Okay, the second variable is the annual turnover rate. This is brought over from PIC. So when you enter the end of participations in PIC, it'll say, like if you have 100 leased, 10 end of participations, you got a 10% turnover rate. It's a staggered 12-month snapshot of the end of participations, and then it compares it to UMLs or unit months leased to generate the attrition rate. Okay. The green circle is information as of the end of the prior month. Okay, but you have 60 days to enter your 50058s and PIC. So in some cases, if a housing authority is behind, the red circle, the annual turnover rate that's populated, it's going to be more complete but older. If you are current on your 50058s, you will want to take this 29.5 and change it to the 29.52. In this sample, there's not a big difference, but sometimes there is. Okay, at the bottom, we got vouchers issued, projected to be issued. This housing authority put 8 vouchers on the street in August of 2020. Okay, this goes back up and it ties in to your success rate at the top. Now, when you're putting in the success rate, like right now it's September 2020. So you would want to put how many vouchers you have on the street now, and then how many you plan to put on the street in October, November, December. If it's September, like it is now, you would not want to go back to August because it will actually double up those vouchers. It'll double up your numbers. So you want to go from the current month into the future. Okay, that's all the data. So then what do you look at? This, of course, is my favorite part of the tool. So it's a leasing and spending outcomes, current and following year projections. This housing authority has 96.5% of unit months available. You've got 91.5% of HAP expended as a percent of all funds. That means all your budget authority for the current year plus your reserves or your net restricted position. Okay, and HAP expended as a percent of eligibility only is 96.2%. This is what CMAP is scored on. Either the UMLs as a percent of the ACC units or the HAP eligibility expenditures as a percent of eligibility only. The middle number is just there for your information. Okay, I pay particular attention to the excess reserves subject to offset. Ideally, I'd like to see 0 reserves, but period. And PHA spends all their money, but that's not practical. Nobody wants to run down to 0. It's too close to going into shortfall. So I like to at least see the excess reserves subject to offset be 0. That means, okay, HUD provides reports to Congress who looks at, hey, there's all this money the housing authorities have that they haven't spent. So this year, 2020, there was no offset, but most years there is an offset. So in this example, this $17,292 would be subject to an offset. And the number that was populated in there that they were estimating would be 25% of that amount. Now, when Congress offsets that, you never get it back. It's just gone. Okay, so HUD has typically funded the housing authorities using the prior calendar year for a baseline. Why ideally you would want to have no reserves at all? And in 2021, HUD is going to take what you spent from January of 2020 to December of 2020. And then they're going to use that as a baseline for the next year. Then they prorate it and they inflate it. Okay, that's how it's been done at least for 10 years. So since new funding is based on spending, the housing authority that spends more will get more funding. If you're not spending your current eligibility, you're probably not going to get as much next year as you did this year. Okay, and how does this affect CMAP? CMAP indicator 13 lease up is determined by unit months leased as a percent of ACC months available or HAP expenses as a percent of eligibility. So you can look on here and see how you're doing with regards to CMAP scoring. Okay, per unit cost is the amount each voucher costs the housing authority on average per month. The two-year tool populates with actuals where available and then uses the last known actual going forward. Okay, so in some cases, the tool will automatically trend your per unit cost. It doesn't always do that. And with COVID this year, we have seen per unit cost going up. So you want to make sure. In this example, we've got January started at 301 and August is 303. This per unit cost is staying pretty steady. If it went up $40 or $50, you're going to want to somewhat trend it in September, October, November, December. You can use this manual PUC override to do that. Any yellow cell in this tool is editable. Okay, this is one of the tabs on the tool. I don't use this a lot. It just shows what your trends are. Are you going up or down on the PUC? And then the rent burden. And another example of the same tab. Okay, and I went over this. You can override. I went over this, and you can override the PUCs. In this case, in the green or the yellow cells, you can override it. If you don't think that, in this case, November is going to be $609, you can make it $700. You can put whatever you want, as long as the number's realistic. Okay, so I got questions here, and that's the end of the presentation portion. But what I'd like to do is actually go over to your tool. Now, if anybody has a two-year tool that they don't mind us using, we can call your two-year tool up or have one ready. So let me see. I don't know if I can get to the comments. If you want me to use your two-year tool, I can do that. If you would put a your PHA code in the chat. Trying to get back to the meeting. Can you see if there's anything in the chat?
Doesn't look like it yet.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share another screen. If you see something pop up, Doug, would you let me know?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So what I got.
Megan has volunteered. It looks like Megan, KS149.
KS149. Okay. Let me start on that one. Because the example I have is a housing authority in New York. It's not a super good example. Okay. So this is what you get when you pull up the two-year tool. So I just type KS149 in the box. I just click off of it until I see that everything populates. Oops. Oh, it doesn't like this. I'm going to close this tool out. It's a bad idea to have two-year tools open.
Thanks, Megan, for volunteering on that.
Let's see, I got to share again. Took me out of there. Oh, it took me clear out. Okay, I'm going to have to go back in and open this again. Bear with me here. It's opening. It's real slow. It's huge. And sometimes when a housing authority is trying to open these, it takes them a lot longer than it takes us at HUD. That's why I usually will tell my housing authorities, just let me know if you want it. And, I never mind pulling these. It's our job to help you. So, okay, now I should be able to share again. Let's see. Share. Here we go. Okay, KS 149. So I'm gonna wait till this populates. And then I'm gonna say open to your tool. Now when this screen pops up, I select all variables. The only time I don't, if there's a brand new tool at the start of the year, and like success rate will be 0, attrition rate will be 0, then I just say onward and let it populate with the variables, the default variables. I will go back into the last tool that I did for that housing authority for the prior year, and I'll get these variables. But once you populate a tool one time, these should come up. At least for HUD, it will populate with the last batch of variables that were used. And then this, it says offset PBV attrition. That's project-based vouchers. I just say offset it if anyone has project-based vouchers. And then I trend the PUC. Now, what I would do that I'm not going to do today because it's going to take too long is I will pull down 2019 and 2020 VMS reports, because housing authorities can go back in and change VMS almost to the beginning of time, it seems like. And actually, that is true. I don't know that you can't go back. As long as it's available, the prior years, you can go back. We can pull in the last 2 years. So in case there's any changes, it only takes like 2 or 3 minutes to pull a VMS report once I have it open. So I would pull the most current VMS into here. Now VMS is not due till the 22nd. So we don't have July and August numbers yet. Oh, we don't have July. Oh, that's because this report is older. The VMS would fill July in. And I'm gonna put some numbers in here just to play with this. I like to make that go away. I'm gonna hide this thing. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so this is Pittsburgh Housing Authority. We can see here that the initial BA for 2020 was 1.3 million. There were no offsets. There weren't offsets this year. No set aside funding. Now this is yellow. So this is an editable cell.
Patty, right now I'm just seeing the, maybe it'll take a while to load up. I'm just seeing the first screen still.
Oh, darn it. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare.
Okay.
I think this thing will only do one share at a time, one screen at a time. Okay, so, okay, good, thank you. So you've got 1.3 million in initial budget authority for 2020. And this is net of offset. So if you had an offset, you would have to add this plus the offset amount to get what your budget authority should have been if you did not have an offset. But anyway, that's the money that you're getting. This is your offset set aside. It's yellow, so it's editable. You can say, hey, I've applied for set aside. I know I've been approved, for $10,000 for portables or whatever. You can go ahead and plug that in if you know that you're getting set aside. But one of the things on one of the first classes I taught, the housing authorities would pull a tool, at least some of them would pull a tool, and then they would keep updating that tool, for the whole year. What I recommend is pulling a brand new tool every single time you want to do a tool, that you want to look at it, and not at least once a month when you're updated, because new set aside, if there's if they reprorate the HAP, which they often do, you might get a little extra dab of money in 2020 because they had extra in 2019, and so they changed the proration. There's all kind of instances where you may get a little bit of money here or there. You're never going to get that if you just pull one tool at the beginning and keep updating it. So what I want to do for my housing authorities is pull a brand new tool every time. And I would recommend, if you're pulling your own tools, I think that's great. Just make sure you are not using the same one and updating it. Also, if the estimates change for the next year, you're going to get those better estimates. Okay, so this is total, which is the same as this. PHA income, that comes from BMS. It's just other income that the housing authority had. It could be laundry machines or whatever. Okay, total cash supported prior year end reserves. That number is this number. This is the number that Doug talked about. Okay. The PHA's number is usually greater than the HUD number because it also includes your unrestricted net position. You got your restricted net position plus your unrestricted in the PHA's money. And we know that that's not HAP money. So they use the lower of the numbers, which is right here. Now what the Financial Management Center does, and you probably either have Christy or Debbie for a financial analyst, if there's a big discrepancy between what the housing authority shows and what HUD shows, they're going to do a reconciliation. And that's pretty detailed. They automatically at the FMC do so many reconciliations a year, and it varies from year to year with the workload. Then if there's a particular problem and a large discrepancy, the financial analyst there may just decide to do a reconciliation on their own. Okay, so this is your total funding available. Now, if we're going to look at 2021, right now, HUD's estimating that you're going to get less in budget authority than you got the prior year. And you've got $26,000 as an offset. I'll show you where that comes from. And that is an estimated offset. It could be higher, it could be lower. There could be no offset. But that is because you have some reserves subject to offset, and where I like to see that as 0. Okay. This is the proration saying they're estimating at 100% for 2021 and 2022. And they're looking at reserve subject to offset at 25%. So if you have excess reserves, the estimate is 25% of those. That is shown right here on the tool. This is 25% of this goes over here in 2021 as an offset. And by the way, I've never done this training virtually, so I kind of like to see if I have questions in the middle. Does anybody have any questions right now? If you could put them in the chat, and Doug, can you let me know what they are, if there's any?
No questions yet, but feel free to type, or if you can, I don't know if you can unmute, you can do that too.
I don't know. Okay, so, okay. On this housing authority, we've got a success rate of 47%. So if this housing authority sends out 100 vouchers on the street, 47 of them are going to lease up. And I don't know why But that's something you should probably talk to your portfolio manager at the field office about. It's a low success rate. I understand every place is different, every city's different, but if we have ideas that can help you improve your success rate, it's beneficial for you and it's beneficial for the tenants we're trying to house. Turnover rate, 33.4%. Okay, this is the older number. More conservative number is going to be 26.07. I'm going to say all these 50, 58s are current. And I'm going to put 26.07 here. Because with the turnover rate higher, if you're going to go into shortfall, it'll look better for you than if the turnover rate's 26%. Okay, so I always look, I'm changing things because I know I've generally updated my VMS by now. I always go back to here. I'm gonna look, we got $90,000 subject to offset. If we just change this from, it wasn't 33, I believe. Whoops, too far. We had 103,000 subject to offset. I'm going to change it back to the 26.07. 90,000 subject to offset. So you can see how the attrition rate and the difference changes pretty dramatically, especially if you are a lot closer on the money. I'm going to go down, before we do anything else here, I want to go down to the bottom because I would fill these numbers in. And I'm just going to say, okay, this housing authority is leasing up 325. And let's see, 120, 225. I'm just making up some numbers to go in here. 340, or let's say 335 for August. And 12745. Let's see if I got my the PUCs are, I've got them trending upward just a little bit here. For September, we're going to estimate 345, and we're going to say we've got 138,276. So I've got, and what I did, I put in here where the PUC, for the actual numbers they had, their PUC trended from 345 to 360. So that's $15 per unit per month. In the sample that I showed you, that PUC wasn't trending at all. Now, the numbers I put in made it go clear up to 401 a month. So let's just say that's really, these are real numbers, and because of COVID, these PUCs are trending up. So I may want to trend the rest of them. It says 401 all the way down. Well, I've gone from 345 to 401 here. And that is, let me see, 401, $56 a month. So let's just say they're going to go to 411. I'm going to make them go up $10 a month. 420, whoops, 421, 431, okay? Now you can see how this has changed. Take these out for just 1 minute because I want to show you what it does up here. With the numbers that I put in and the PUC trending upward, this housing authority, it now has no excess reserve subject to offset. And they have $31,278 in HAP reserves at the end of 2020. Okay, so we have shrunk that number. And the reason that we shrunk the number is because of per unit cost. Okay, now I'm going to put these back in, 411, 421, 431. And I'm going to go back up here. This housing authority has no vouchers on the street. And with just the trending PUC, They're going to have $11,000 left at the end of the year. And they have nothing subject to offset at the end of 2021 and 43,000 in reserves. Now, let's go back up here. HEP expenditures as a percent of eligibility only is 113.9% or 114%. So this would be 100% CMAP score. They spent 99.2% of all funds, meaning HAP and reserves. And do you remember before I put all the numbers in, this housing authority was going to get less in 2021 than they got in 2020. Well, now they're getting more as an estimate, but these are really close estimates. And the reason that they're getting more is because they spent more money. So if I want to take some of these out and make this 125 and 135, so that my PUCs, let's make this a little less. I don't want my PUCs trending quite so much. And I'm going to take these where I'm going to do the manual PUC override out. And I like to go through these scenarios with my housing authorities so that they see what is happening. Sometimes it's hard to do a screen share, but sometimes we can do it on Skype. So now with the numbers that I have in here for the 3 months, and of course, these are just made up numbers. This housing authority has no excess reserve subject to offset, and the total HAP reserves are $53,749. I want to go back. And let's say we've got 50 vouchers on the street in September. Okay, 50 vouchers on the street doesn't change. In putting 50 vouchers on the street in September doesn't change anything very much for 2020, but it is going to affect 2021. Now, if I take this success rate and make it 60%, let's make it 55. It still didn't change very much in 2020, but 2021, it's used up a lot more money.
Patty, is that really because of the time to lease up?
That's because of the time, and that's reflected, whoops, I'm sorry. It's reflected right here. 39% of them lease up in 30 days, 31 in 30 to 60, 20% 60 to 90. So we're going into 2021 with these lease ups, or they're leasing up in December. Any questions? Now, if I want to do,
no
go ahead.
No questions in the chat.
Okay. Now, if I want to go back here and say, I'm going to lease up 10, 10, 10, 10. That's 40 instead of 50. It changes these numbers up here again. And that is because, and the way I like to think of it, if you're going to put vouchers on the street at the beginning of the year, it's like having a big lever trying to move a heavy rock. And if you put vouchers on the street at the end of the year, you're trying to move it with a little bitty lever or push it yourself. So what happens also, what I should talk about, a lot of housing authorities will stop leasing in the first of the year. The end of, they may stop leasing in December. And they don't lease the first of the year because you don't know what your funding is going to be. These tools are very accurate and have been accurate as long, let's see, I think the tool first came out in like, I don't remember if it was 2011 or 2013. I think it was 2011. And at that time, or since that time, these estimates have proven to be just super accurate for the next year. So because of the ability to affect your leasing so much more at the beginning of the year than the end of the year, we really hate to see housing authorities stop leasing just because you don't know what your funding is. These are really accurate estimates. Can you think of anything else I should? And one more thing I would advise Pittsburgh to do is to go in here, click on the Access Additional Tools, success rate tracking, and to complete this. And it's for 19 and 20. You'll complete how many vouchers you issued, how many failed. If you had, just say you had 50, 10 failed. You had 5, 10, 15, and let's see, how many more do I need? That's 25, 30, 10. Okay. So you got 40 that leased up. This is going to populate this part here once you complete it. And it's going to give you accurate time of issuance data, time of issuance to have effective date, and it's going to give you a more accurate success rate. And I don't remember what this was before. Let's just say 4 to 6. If I change this back to 33% of the annual turnover, and that is an accurate number, the 33. We have more money left and way more money left here in 2021. So, and you see that success rate tracking tab, you have it here. So all you have to do is complete this with your data. And then if you want to use this on another tool, transfer table to new tier tool. So you can transfer this from tool to tool if you want. And it gives you your success rate by month. What to do if you need more than 150 days, move success rate and time from issuance to the production tab. See what we got. We got an 80% success rate. That's 40 out of 50. And it tells you what percent leased up in what amount of time. And that all comes from here. So this will really tweak everything and give you really accurate numbers, you know, based on real data rather than just guessing. So this tool, even though it looks intimidating, if you just think of it, when we gave you the checkbook scenario, there's your beginning balance right there. What you get for your income and what you've spent. Now there's another tab on here that some of you have seen. It's the FMC tab right here. If you want additional cash disbursements. So if you want to look at this tab, this is every month in detail. Let's see. This is your beginning of month HUD held reserves for every single month and your end of month HUD held reserves. So if you want to know what your HUD held reserves are, this auto-populated through September because I put, I think I put July, August, and September in there. So again, to get this tab, all you have to do is click Access Additional Tools and FMC Additional Disbursements Cash Management. Now, when you call and you may have seen this, because when you call the FMC and ask for additional money, you want some of your HUD held reserves, they complete this tab. Any questions? Does anybody want me to look at another tool? We have time.
I like the ability to go in and check, if I change the PUC or I change the number of vouchers on the street, what's the effect? I mean, I think it's pretty useful for that.
Right, and the PUC's been going up a lot with COVID, so I want to be careful. Sometimes I'll talk to Housing Authority and say, I think you can lease, and they're like, well, look what's happening to the PUC. When you do look at that, you change those numbers, it makes a big difference in the money you have left. Whatever you do, you don't want to end up in shortfall. But you also want to spend all your money so you get as much as possible for the following year. So my name's Patty Bennett, and I'm Patricia Bennett, according to HUD. So if you have any questions for me, my email is Patricia, PATRICIA .L like Lynn, Bennett, BENNETT @HUD.gov. And Doug, you may want to give them your contact info too.
Sure. So my email is douglas.w.martin@hud.gov. By all means, feel free to send any questions, and I'll forward them on to Patty. No, I'll try to answer them as best.
I'll help you, Doug. So if we have no more questions, that ends the presentation.